the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Twofold. One, for him to lead in both. Like, that's just a bold statement. And I don't know. Like, to me, the harder question is, will he be Tennessee's best receiver? Because then I'm like, yeah, that's a really tough conversation. Then I might say yes, just because I like his ceiling the most of anybody. But when you're talking about him against the field and what's a pretty balanced receivers room, at least seems to me to be a balanced receivers room, I got to sell on that.
I think it's one of those where Dante Thornton obviously still in the room, and he'll factor in as well, barring a spring transfer for any of these guys, because you never know in today's college football that you never know 100% what the room's going to look like until we get to fall camp. But I mean, Ethan, when you think about it, is it if Chris Brazzell ends up leading Tennessee in receiving and or touchdowns, which would be bigger potentially for Tennessee if Brazzell has like a Javonte Payton type impact, or just a lot of touchdowns and a lot of big plays, but not necessarily a lot of consistent receptions in a Squirrel White role? Or would it matter more if he's in the receiving yards category and kind of like a Jalen Hyatt situation where he's taking the top off and he's actually leading the team in that way?
With Brazzell being 6'5" and seeing the balls that he was able to catch in a rushing offense at Tulane, I think it would matter more if he was more of a Javonte Payton. Catching, being the red zone target, being the threat for those back shoulder passes, or being able to do that, letting Squirrel White, the crazy amount of speed that Tennessee has in kind of the short passing game, letting them do that and having Brazzell be the touchdown guy. And also, to answer your question, I think I agree with Ryan. I think I'd sell on him leading both. I could see a world in which he'd lead in touchdown. I mean, he was a strong red zone target at Tulane. I believe he had the most touchdown catches on their team. He led the team in receiving yards. Like I said, they weren't exactly a pass-happy team, but he brings a lot in his height, I think, is the thing that's being overlooked. I still think Squirrel is probably going to be the best receiver on the team. I think if I had to put my money somewhere, I'd say that it'd be Squirrel. But it's very intriguing. Coming to the team is very intriguing just for those reasons, just because he could be a legitimate touchdown threat right there alongside Brew McCoy, and how dependable I think he could be in catching the ball.
I just feel like Brazzell is going to be a star. I don't know. Just my gut is I think Brazzell is going to work out in a major way for Tennessee. You also have Brew coming back from just a brutal injury. We'll see how much he factors in right out of the gate here. Maybe they take it slow with him, and maybe he ends up gobbling a lot of red zone touchdowns. He's a safety net for Nico. We'll see what that relationship looks like. My gut, I mean, if I had to say right now in March, I think the best case scenario for Tennessee is Brazzell leads in touchdowns and Squirrel leads in receiving yards. I think that's a really good year, and that means things are firing in all cylinders if that's the case. If that's where you're at, and those are the big three, and then obviously some production from Staley and Mike Matthews as freshmen too would go a long way. But I am really interested with how Brazzell factors in and how the hype surrounds him because of last year with Dante Thornton, and I wonder if maybe he benefits from less attention this spring and summer because they're like, oh, well, so many fans got really obsessed with Dante Thornton's arrival and taking the top off the defense and what we saw in Eugene. Maybe that helps Chris Brazzell, who had a lot more production too coming into Tennessee from Tulane, a lot more in that regard. So I don't know. I'm just I would gobble up a lot of Chris Brazzell stock right now if you are not already. That's where I lean right now. True or false? The Vols need the tempo of 2022 to get back into serious contention in 2024, Ethan Stone. That's something I've also been thinking about this week.
You think they need it?
I'm wondering, because the tempo was not the same this past year with Joe, and it was for a multitude of reasons. I'm certain as to why the tempo wasn't as fast as what we saw in the special season that was 2022. But do you think that's necessarily necessary for Tennessee to be elite again? Is that they have to be that super, super fast, all systems go offense to be atop the SEC in scoring?
See, that's kind of asking. I feel like people are going to be asking a lot out of Nico Iamaleava. Obviously, as they should. I mean, he showed a lot against Iowa. He showed that. I think something that was surprising about his game against Iowa, especially, is how good he was with his legs, and that seems to favor what you're saying here about the tempo. Because I mean, if Nico can be that constant rushing threat with the speed they have with Dylan Sampson in the backfield, with
nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.